So the joke I was telling him yesterday was like, look, man, we're going to go on this campaign saying, say no to crack.
I like it.
If you got cracks in the lawn, turn the water on and say no to crack, baby. What's up, what's up, what's up? It's AJ with Hippie Fertilizing on the More Than Grass podcast, here with Gardy from
Clear Life Media. What's up, AJ? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Rolling into April. Still noticing that we're having those cooler temperatures at night, but we have had a few warmer days. So the fertilizer's getting released, grass is greening up, so are the weeds.
Yeah, the grass is greening up and the weeds are. Yesterday, I went outside and I was seeing how it was a nice day, right? So I decided, hey, I want to grill. I want to put something on the grill, and me and some of my kids were outside kind of playing in the yard and stuff, but it was, man, it's been nice.
Yeah, it really has. Hopefully we're looking at some more rain next week, which I was at a customer's house yesterday, and he's been my customer for quite a while. Okay? Life happens, nature happens, everything happens all the time. He's like, hey, AJ, when is my grass going to start looking better? And I'm thinking like, I don't know. Sometimes, I don't know. But here's why. Okay, first year, I don't know if you remember a couple years ago, it like rained all summer. We would do top dressings, try to do some lawn leveling. We would get a gully washer of rain, and literally everything goes down the drain, right? So that was a challenge. And then it heats up like it does every summer. I don't even care if it rained all summer. Clock this in, remember this, Gardy, so you can say whether I'm right or not. It's almost like we get a guaranteed 4 to 6 weeks of dry weather every summer, at a minimum. Last year was way more than that, but, that happened. So I said, hey, if you should really consider getting an irrigation system. So he did. And where I'm going with this, because you showed me a picture earlier of your own irrigation running. He has what's called MP rotator heads. Okay? Average spray heads, you could say roughly about 10 minutes is good on them, kind of by rule of thumb. Rotator heads, about 20, 25, even sometimes 30 minutes. It really depends on whether they're going at like, what would you call it? Like a quarter of an area to like 180, right? To 360. Mm-hmm. So the more that area opens up on a rotator head, you want to increase the time because it's covering more area. Okay. Now these MP rotators, for them to do anything, you need to run them for like 30 minutes. So you run this thing for 10 minutes, you're not getting what a regular spray head does. In his backyard, he has regular spray heads, runs for 10 minutes, floods the yard. It's great. Love it. So he has all these cracks in his ground. Mm-hmm. I'm like, hey, man, when's the last time you watered the grass? Oh, I don't know. My wife did it, which I believe him. I believe that they're watering the grass, but the emphasis on how long is really important. Because if I can look at your lawn and it's sparse and I see a ton of cracks in the ground, what does that tell you?
That it needs water.
Right. It's dry.
Yeah.
And grass, plants, all that stuff is kind of like humans. Mm. What are we mostly made of?
Water.
Right. We need it to elevate.
We do. We need some water to elevate.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's important to figure out like what you need for hydration, even in your lawn. Your lawn needs to stay hydrated. And just like us, we're sitting here, we don't need to drink a gallon of water, right? We're just going to have to pee a lot. But if we're working outside in the middle of August, yeah, you probably do need to down like a gallon of water in a much shorter time, right? Mm-hmm. So lawns vary that way as well. You have a lot of grass coverage, so it's preventing Moisture loss, because it's essentially creating a barrier in a way. But if you have a lot of exposed dirt, it's evaporating faster, even in cooler weather.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you're watering the grass or you have a sprinkler system and there's a lot of dirt, then you need to water more. Is that correct? Maybe?
Yes, more often. But also, like, look for the signs, right? Is the ground cracking? Then it's dry, right? And to produce more plant matter, you're gonna need more water, because if that plant is like 80% more water, right, or 80% water, and you need to grow in turf, like, it needs that water just to produce the stuff inside to create more of itself, right? Kind of like if people are, you work with guys who work out, right? You know, what do they need more of if they're really trying to build mass?
Right. They got to eat more protein, and depending on what they're doing, more carbs for energy, and just being aware. Yeah, but they got to eat more. If you want to get big, you got to eat more.
And so the lawn is like that. And in eating more, you have to, you know, probably drink more water. Right. So I want to come in with like a hefty protein smoothie, essentially. But then I need you to water the grass.
Yeah.
So the joke I was telling him yesterday was like, look, man, we're going to go on this campaign saying, say no to crack.
I like it.
If you got cracks in the lawn, turn the water on and say no to crack, baby.
Yeah. No crack.
Yeah. So remember that this August, okay?
Yeah.
You start looking at the ground and be like, man, that's looking a little split, dude.
Yeah.
Probably need to put that irrigation on.
Yeah.
So what was it that you have? You said in your front and your back of your yard. Rotator heads?
Yeah. So there's different sections. I think it's split up into 7 or 8 sections. And I've noticed this because they were programmed a certain way, but then I noticed, hey, there's a lot of water that's running out, you know, in the bushes here. So I kind of played with it, but I do have rotator heads in 2 sections of my front and backyard, and they go about 180. Maybe some of them are a little bit less in the back. And you were talking about looking at, hey, this rotator. I'm like, what is that? And then once you explained it, but it does make sense. And I probably do need to go reprogram some of the sections and maybe let those rotators, especially in the backyard, get a little bit more, because the backyard's bigger than the front yard, and it just does cover a lot. But that makes sense, because I did make the sections that were overflowing with water in the bushes. I put the time down on that, but everything else, I think the max I have is 10 minutes, just because I was like, oh, that seems like it's a good number, and I'm just gonna let it go. But again, I don't know.
And I'm kind of like wanting to chuckle over here, because, you know, you said an honest thing that a lot of people say. It seems like a good number.
It does. It's even, complete.
But you didn't know, right? And I would say on average, the rule of thumb is you almost want to double your time for a rotator head than your regular spray heads. Okay. But if you're really trying to dial this in, and let's call this like get to know your zone, because every zone around your home is going to be different. Let's say I was at your house. You got the average like smaller area next to your house where you walk to the backyard. You don't want to run that for 10 minutes usually. That's going to be soaked. And then you create mud, and that creates a whole nother problem. Then you're killing your own grass because you're making a mud pit, and you're like, why is my grass dying? I'm like, well, you're kind of suffocating it with too much water. And then as it dries up, it gets all ultra compacted. So it's a nasty, vicious cycle. So, you know, generally for sides of people's homes, I tell them 6 minutes. But again, you know, you should like turn everything on. Should plan out like an hour and a half. And it sounds nuts, right? Like, who wants to look at their grass for an hour and a half? But if you think about it, as much as I hear about people talking about the grass, they've been looking at the grass a long time.
Right.
Right? So it would behoove us to get to know your zone and in your lawn and watch what it does. Because I didn't even understand how these MP rotator heads worked. I told him in my ignorance, hey, run everything for 10 minutes, right? Over a year ago. And he's like, AJ, I did what you said. And every time I come over, I'm like, you're not watering your grass. And he's like, yes, I am. We're having like argument, like, look in the fridge. It's right there. I don't see it. Like, oh.
Yeah.
All right. So I sat with him one day for over an hour as I would watch these heads go on. And first I was, okay, run this for 10 minutes. I'm looking at the ground like, that ain't even hardly wet. Okay, run it for 20 minutes. Okay, now we're starting to get somewhere. And with my fertilizer, now I have figured out that I have these little blue chips in there that I think is like the urea methylene or probably the urea form. Urea methylene stays really well. Urea form is more like a water soluble, which means it breaks down in water. So when I put down this stuff on people's lawns now, and I learned it on my own lawn, so I've discovered if you don't see all those little blue chips gone, you didn't water it in enough.
Mm-hmm.
They need to dissolve. So I put all this fertilizer on his lawn yesterday. Said, look, man, you didn't water enough until these things are gone. So, okay. So, because we need sometimes something to see,
For
right?
sure.
But sitting with him for that amount of time, it gave me that experience of visually seeing it myself. And then I took a class last year for irrigation. Still need to get my license. Need to take that test. Gonna do that here soon. But in the class, the instructor was asking us, showing different pictures of the different types of spray heads, right? And so, how long does it, he got to the MP rotators and he said, well, how long do you have your customer running them for? And I said, 30 minutes. And this is in August, okay? Because, last year it was like hitting 113 degrees. It was hot. Please, people, don't get weather amnesia and forget how hot it was last year. There's a calculation thing that is taught in the irrigation class of how long to run your irrigation per like water flow and head and stuff like that. So essentially, I gave him some dimensions of what was going on, and he said, well, if that's the case, he needs to run them for 45 minutes.
Wow.
That's a lot, right?
Yeah. Then we're getting into water bills.
So you as a homeowner,
Yeah.
I want you to really think, like, if I tell you that, you did already halfway answer it, or somewhat. Okay, if I tell you to run your zone for 45 minutes, yeah, what are your thoughts?
That's a long time.
It's a long time, right?
Yeah.
And so what's also really annoying about this specific situation, especially with these MP rotators, is that you're running it for a long time, right? But just like units of measurement and anything, 5 gallons is 5 gallons, right? Doesn't matter if it's in 1 little liter bottles or little cups. You put it together, it equals 5 gallons, whether it's like in little bottles or if it's in a bucket. And so imagine coming out of these heads, it's coming out in a ton of little tiny bottles, right? Versus the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not putting down any more water. In fact, the bonus side to these MP rotators, when you're using them properly, is you get way better water infiltration because it's going in slower, so you're less likely to get runoff. So you're actually getting more bang for your buck. You just feel like you're spending a whole lot more because it's running for 45 minutes.
Okay, I got you. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you're not. And then that's like a hard thing, I think, for us to adjust to sometimes. It's like, man, I'm running my water forever. I'm like, but it's not changing your water bill. Versus if you had these other heads and I told you to run them for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact same.
So is it easy to change out those heads? Is it a matter of just kind of swapping it out, or is there more that has to be done?
It's an excellent question. There would be more that has to be done because when zones are put in properly, they get based off of how much they're going to cover, what the gallons per minute flow is, and you have to figure out what the gallons per minute flow is going to be on the very last head to make sure that it has pressure to pop up and to shoot out. So you get different heads that can shoot anywhere from 4 feet to 12 feet to 18 feet, right? But if you don't have the pressure to do that, you're not getting it, okay? And these MP rotators, and one of the other reasons that people use them is because you can put a lot on them and they don't use a lot of flow. So you can add a ton of heads without dropping your gallons per minute flow on a line drastically. And then another thing that can be really good about them is we tend to get a lot of wind, right? So on these windy days, instead of you watering the street, right, you're watering the lawn because it shoots out in these little streams, and it's not nearly as affected by wind as a regular spray head.
Gotcha.
So there's huge benefits, but only when they're used properly.
Mm-hmm. I'd always wondered, and I kind of figured it's a water pressure thing, and you kind of answered some more. Like, why not just spray the whole yard? You know, it's in zones, but there's not enough water pressure because even if you're inside the house and it's like, whoa, where'd the water pressure go? You know, I'm brushing my teeth or whatever time, you know, it is, depending on your schedule of your irrigation system, it's like the water pressure goes down. And so that's how those things end up popping up. Is it due to pressure? Is that how they set it up? Okay.
Correct. And there's things that, you know, fortunately for us and technology, we don't have to figure out things quite like they used to even a short time ago. But stuff like how close you are to a water tower can drastically impact your irrigation. So if you're like right next to a water tower, a lot of times people should be having things that reduce pressure because you have so much.
Interesting.
Right? And when you see the... Loved what the dude in the class would talk about. Man, he's like, I'm Mexican and I'm in irrigation. So we do one thing really well. I was like, what is that? He's like, we lie. No BS, man. Because, and here's one of the things he was talking about. You'll see some of these heads popping up and they're spraying all this mist, right? And you're like, man, that looks beautiful and it's putting out a lot of water. He's like, that's crap. You may tell someone, yeah, that's great. Looks great. But in reality, you want bigger water droplets because they'll fall and you won't get mist and evaporation and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So these are things to take into consideration. And yes, you get line drop. There's like even the valves that you use can impact it. Fortunately for us, we're in Lake City, you know, and even around Friendswood, most of our area around where we're at, we got so much water pressure. Dude, some of these homes where I fill up my tank to set up my spray tank, it's like we could get fire trucks to hook up to our house, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember, did you go to Astroworld when you were young?
Yes.
And the cool zones? I remember the mist, and it was like, oh, I don't want to get wet. But you would walk underneath it, and it's kind of like, I think a lot of it would just evaporate, or you wouldn't actually get wet, but it would just be a little bit of cool mist.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's not going to do anything for the grass. It looks cool, and it reminds you of being young and going to Astroworld, but as far as like actually making a difference, probably not.
Right. No. And a good way to kind of see this is, say you put your hose on a like a shower setting. Now when I do water stuff in my lawn or my flower bed, that's my favorite one because I'm getting a nice flow rate, but it's dropping heavier, and it's not like on the jet where you're like digging into the dirt around the plant, right? In the soaker, you know, that ain't going far enough on that setting for me to feel happy about anything. But you also have like the mist on some of these little spray nozzles. That mist ain't doing nothing, man. And if it ain't doing nothing when you have it on a spray nozzle, it ain't gonna do nothing in your lawn if that's how your irrigation heads are responding.
Mm-hmm.
So to go back to the original question, he has like, I want to say 12 heads or more on these 2 zones. And if we were to switch them out with regular spray heads, no, it would most likely be way too much pressure drop for them to operate properly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not about like changing it out. That's an expensive endeavor once it's already in. It's just knowing how to use it properly.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's why I say, Guardy, go home. Know your zone, dog.
Yeah. There's either 7 or 8. I kind of know. And I've watched, and I kind of see, okay, where I know that the path it takes and all that. And I did notice, I didn't know the names of the different sprayers, but like the last zone that it does is on the left side of my house. And I always wondered, like, why didn't they just make that zone 1? Because it starts in the bushes, then it goes to the front, and then it goes back to the back, and then it loops back around and goes all the way back to the front on the side that was forgotten over here. I just thought it was funny, but I probably should make and I know those zones, they probably should come down in time.
Probably.
Yeah.
Especially if you know you're really getting a lot of runoff, stuff like that. And another thing to go into this that gets me a little perturbed sometimes is, the kind of golden rule of watering is, you need to put down 1 inch of water a week. So here's something about that inch of water and the gay little thing about, just get out a tuna can and see what it fills up the tuna can. Here, keep
Interesting. I've never heard of this. I was thinking about the cats and the rabbits. They'd be coming around.
Well, they're empty, maybe cleaned out, right?
Yeah, maybe.
So
Not mine.
shouldn't be too much of
Full
an
of
issue.
tuna.
Yeah. Well, we'll rinse it out right there. It'll be a little protein fertilizer. It'd be great.
Okay.
So there's a difference between 1 inch of water in your lawn, like in the soil, and 1 inch that just dropped. Okay. It's going to take more than 1 inch for it to infiltrate your soil. So it may take like 3 inches of water for that. You have to fill up the tuna can 3 times to get 1 inch in your lawn. Because think about it this way. Okay, we take this table, you're going to pour water on it, right? It's going to sit right there. Okay, nothing infiltrated. It's a flat, hard surface. Now, if we take like a sponge, you pour water on it, it's going to absorb a little bit, right?
Right.
And depending on how that sponge is and all these different factors, maybe you had something caked on it and it took more to infiltrate it. Or maybe it's a super porous sponge and it did infiltrate pretty well, but it's not going to be a perfect inch.
Right.
It's going to take more.
Yeah.
So some of these things I hear in gardening for recommendations get so tiresome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, dude, it's going to take more than 1 inch. The tuna can is crap. Okay. And go out and just watch. There's no better way to figure out something than to watch what happens.
Yeah. There's something I was talking about the other day. Yeah, you can watch and you can learn. And then there's also a chance that you can take, or another way to learn is just to go find somebody who knows it all and just absorb it all from them, or a lot of times pay them to do it. If you're busy, you can find somebody who, hey, they can do this for me and I don't have to worry about it because they know what they're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's true.
It is.
But let's also say experience is a great teacher, right?
Sure.
So I can tell you all this stuff, Gardy, but until you go and do it, it's only theory.
Yeah.
Now, if you go do it, you get to know your zone. Okay?
Yeah.
Like, gonna come back next week. It's like, dude, I have these heads. Some are quarters. Some are 180s. these couple are 360s. I'm like, yeah.
I got my protractor out there trying to see. It's not quite 180.
Man, I got different kinds of tuna cans just to see what would happen. So yes, you're right. You can pay someone who does know.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm telling y'all this out here because this is something we hear often about watering and not knowing the types of heads and not knowing the time. So go out, hit the button, and watch. Look, and it's your irrigation. You can do it on Saturday, Sunday, while you're drinking beer or something, right? Like, so it's not like it has to be super complicated, especially for this part.
Mm-hmm.
Just go get the ground wet and watch how your ground absorbs the water.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference. I also like watching something. What'd you put out this week, Gardy?
I put out some Fiesta weed killer.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Are you seeing a difference?
You know, I have noticed a difference, and I took a before picture and an after picture, but I had to wait for my what's that pump thing? Just a
like
pump.
your gallon pump sprayer?
Yeah, my pump sprayer. Had to wait for that to come in, and then had to wait for the Fiesta to come in, and so yeah, I applied it. I think it had to have been Tuesday or so, maybe. Yeah, it wasn't Wednesday. I think I put it on Tuesday. I followed the directions. It says 5 ounces per gallon. So I did that, and it took me about an hour, I would say. Yeah, but I went through the gallon because I was trying to make sure, am I covering this? Am I doing this correctly? And then, okay, all my gallons gone. Okay, let me put 5 more ounces in. I thought it would cover, the whole front yard, but I was like, well, I'm going to make sure I do this, especially if there's a part where there's, some of the weeds and stuff. So it took me a bit of time. But yes, I took a picture this morning, and I did show you before we went on.
Yeah.
And it's starting to get black and stuff on these little... I thought it was like clover or some stuff, but there was flowers and they were
like
yellow,
oxalis
white,
and black medic.
Okay, yeah, but now those flowers, you can't tell what color they were, but they're starting to blacken up. Yeah, but I only did the front yard because I'm gonna have to. My wife asked me, she's like, "Did you do the backyard?" I was like, "No." She was like, "Honestly."
So okay, you did that.
Yeah.
And you followed the directions.
I did,
dude. Seriously, good job.
Thank you.
Okay. You don't know how often that does not happen. It's how I got into this. I didn't follow instructions and I screwed some stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what you can learn from directions versus experience is kick that up to like 7 ounces per gallon. Okay. And especially in the spots where there are the weeds, you can spray them a little extra.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of blanket your lawn a little bit, and you don't have to worry really about your St. Augustine or if you have Bermuda getting impacted, which I know he mostly has St. Augustine.
Mostly.
But I do know from when I put the fertilizer down that you had like a nice, beautiful wild patch in the back, right? I love the diversity personally. Okay,
biodiverse.
Yeah, right. I'm not trying to hate on some biodiversity, but again, like you want it to be taken care of and look better. So as you go into the back, kick it up a notch, because from the pictures that you showed me, if it's been like 2 or 3 days, right, dude, they should be all black.
Okay.
Right? Not just a little bit on the edges and stuff.
Yeah. You know how I got that patch in the back? I had, and there is still stuff out there. So I have like sandboxes. I have kids, and then like a little plastic pool, like in the summer. We left it out there and it killed the grass there, And I was like, now we try and, move it around a little bit. And then when it came back, it was like, nah, there's no grass. It's just coming back biodiverse. Yeah.
So I know people don't like this, okay? But I don't care. Is all those weeds is like nature's way of aerating your lawn, of your soil. If we really look at it that way, because we don't really look at lawns like soil. We look at it like it is supposed to be this picture that I saw on TV, right? But first and foremost, your lawn is a little tiny micro ecosystem that's a part of a macro ecosystem that is a part of our environment. And if we looked at it that way, we would see things just a little different. So instead of seeing something that we have to put all these poisons down, right, you'd see this ecosystem that is diverse and thriving on its own, right?
Cool.
It is, it's just a little different paradigm.
Yeah.
But since I know we still want beautiful turf lawns, okay, Fiesta weed killer is a more safe way to go. So I'd love to hear back from you. Hopefully you're able to get this done over, the next few days so we can see how that turned out. And if my recommendation of increasing it by a couple ounces per gallon increases the effectiveness.
Okay.
Because for us we'll go back to water infiltration, is we have a lot of clay soil. Clay soil has the highest water holding capacity, but it is the slowest for water infiltration. So that's why it's also important to know your zone. Okay? All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gardy. Shout out to Clear Life Media for helping me put this together. And check out hippiefertilizing.com. I have my own 1812 fertilizer that is freaking rocking it out there. You got any other words, Gardy?
And I'm just excited to be able to learn and then also improve my family's life and, the amount of happiness my wife has with me and stuff. So thank you, AJ.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Thank you, guys. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Peace.